This video is sponsored by ClickUp. As renewable energy technologies like wind and solar become cheaper, energy storage is increasingly becoming the critical part and limiting factor. Right now, lithium-ion is the king of the hill due to its relatively low cost and high energy density. But we can't just rely on one technology to meet all of our energy needs. What if there was a battery technology that was cheaper than lithium-ion and didn't use any metals at all? What if we could have a battery that used plastic? That's what one company, along with a team of MIT researchers, are exploring in Boston. So how does this new technology stack up to the current battery technology? Will it be the energy storage solution we've been waiting for? What are the pros and cons? How might it be used? And just how far along are they? I'm Ricky, and this is 2-Bit Da Vinci. A typical battery has three main components: two terminals made of different chemicals, the anode, the cathode, and a liquid electrolyte between them. Primary cells are batteries that can't be recharged, like the alkaline batteries in your remote or the aluminum air battery we've covered in the past. While those have their place for obvious reasons, secondary cells are much more interesting because they're, you guessed it, rechargeable. So good news, the plastic polymer battery in this video is a rechargeable secondary cell. Typically, metals like lithium are used in the cathode because it's very light and has one valence electron that it's happy to donate. Other metals like nickel and cobalt are also added for other characteristics like safety and stability. Graphite is typically used for the anode, although increasingly there is more and more graphene and silicon due to its high conductivity and ability to wedge in and hold lithium ions. But the key, of course, is not just finding the materials that are the most conductive or have the highest capacity. Cost is also a major factor. Right now, lithium is king because it boasts a high energy density. It can undergo multiple charges and discharge cycles, and it's relatively cost compared to other battery chemistries. While the energy world wouldn't be where it is today without lithium-ion batteries, there's a good reason to continue exploring new battery chemistries, mainly because while lithium-ion battery prices have fallen over the past few decades, recent years have seen a dramatic increase in the price of raw lithium and other metals, a lagging indicator of how lithium-ion battery prices might fare in the future. December 2021 saw lithium prices leap a jaw-dropping 485% year over year, according to S&P Global. Not to mention the fact that some of the materials in lithium-ion batteries, including cobalt, magnesium, and lithium itself, carry some environmental and supply chain question marks. This wouldn't be such a big deal 20 years ago, but if we're planning gigawatt hours of grid storage and 1 billion EVs in the next few decades, this question mark is of the utmost importance. As a company or technology gets more mature, it's all about better planning, predicting, and forecasting. That's why we put so much emphasis on our production schedule as a company. ClickUp is the modern productivity platform that helps you manage whatever you're up to. Maybe it's your business or a side hustle. We've even started a new ClickUp space to help prioritize and track our Net Zero Home series. We used to use different tools for writing and scheduling, but things often slip through the cracks. With ClickUp, you can actually bring it all together in one place. It's packed with features and customization options that no other productivity tool has. Here's a task for this video. I assigned it to Juan to finish the video editing, but then he had the nerve to assign me a subtask. A CEO's job is never done, but it is so fulfilling finishing a task and moving it into the completed column. As the head honcho, I love creating dashboards to get an overview of how everyone is doing. Go to www.clickup.com, use code 2bit to get 15% off ClickUp's massive unlimited plan for a year, meaning you can start reclaiming your time for under $5 a month. Huge thanks to ClickUp and you for supporting the show. This is where Boston-based energy storage company PolyJoule comes in. This company is pioneering a brand new battery technology that doesn't use any metal at all. Instead, they use something called conductive polymers. And if you're thinking, wait a minute, don't we already have lithium polymer ion batteries or LiPo batteries? Yes, but LiPo batteries have a polymer electrolyte instead of a liquid electrolyte. They still have metal cathodes and graphite anodes. We've covered polymers on our channel before. They're very large molecules consisting of many repeating subunits. Basically long chains linked together. Essentially, it's plastics. I know. Aren't we trying to get rid of plastics and now you want to put them in batteries? Stick with me, we'll dive into that in just a little bit. But essentially, these properties allow these materials to be incredibly strong and conductive, which means they can act like metals even though they are entirely organic-based materials. There are quite a few polymers that are electrically conductive when linked with conjugated double bonds that run along their backbone. I know that word conjugation might give you flashbacks to your high school Spanish teacher. But here it means alternating single and double bonds. This lets the electrons become delocalized, meaning they can move over the whole system and be shared by many atoms. Novel research into conductive polymers isn't new. In fact, the Nobel Prize for Chemistry was awarded to a group of 3 researchers for their discovery and development of conductive polymers all the way back in 2000. So what does this look like in a battery, and why does it matter? PolyJoule cells are essentially constructed the same way as any other traditional battery, but instead of lithium or cobalt, they use conductive polymers as a cathode, a carbon-graphene hybrid anode, and a non-flammable liquid electrolyte. During charging, ions are stored in the electrode bulk through a ferritic process known as oxidation, essentially rusting when talking about iron. During discharging, the process is reversed, and the ions are expelled from the electrodes through a process called reduction. So what makes this new technology so important? Well, compared to lithium-ion, PolyJoule's batteries have several advantages. For one, it works around some of the supply chain issues that other batteries face. The materials inside these batteries are far more abundant than lithium or cobalt and can be easily synthesized with widely available industrial chemicals, which means no mining. Because these batteries don't contain a flammable electrolyte or use highly reactive materials like lithium, they can forego temperature management and fire suppressant systems that other batteries need to have. Or at the very least, they require much less stuff for thermal and fire management. Remember, every pound of stuff that's needed for things like this is a pound of stuff that adds weight, but not energy storage. This factor is huge in the energy density of an individual cell versus the density of an entire pack. Also, they can tolerate much colder temperatures than lithium-ion batteries can. While an EV today, parked in negative 30 degrees Celsius climates, would have to actively heat the battery pack and lose range slowly even while parked, this might not be the case for the polymer battery. Because of these features, PolyJoule claims that their levelized cost of energy is about 30% less than lithium-ion, with a target price point at around $65 per kilowatt hour. While this is still quite a bit higher than the $20 per kilowatt hour that some researchers point to as the critical price point for energy storage, it's still significantly less than lithium-ion, which hovers between $143 and $250 per kilowatt hour. And PolyJoule batteries could potentially last longer than lithium-ion batteries. Currently, lithium-ion batteries have lifespans of around 15 to 20 years, but PolyJoule claims that their technology could nearly double that, with projected lifespans between 20 and 30 years. In the lab, PolyJoule's team performed 12,000 charge cycles at 100% depth of discharge. So in terms of cost, PolyJoule batteries could be cheaper to build, last longer, and degrade less over time than their competitors. Now, as we mentioned above, the polymers used in these batteries are essentially plastics. And of course, we all know plastic is pretty terrible for the environment. Fortunately, according to the company, their batteries are 95% recyclable. And using polymers for these types of batteries could create a whole new market for recyclable materials, which could be a major win. But there's little info available on just how much recycled plastics could be put into the batteries. So yes, at the end of their life, they're recyclable. But what could we do with the tons of plastic waste we already have in existence today? And what about performance? PolyJoule batteries boast power densities 10 times higher than lithium-ion. Remember, power density is a measure of power output per unit volume. If electricity is water, power density is the size of your hose. A larger hose can put out more water at once. This was a major feature I mentioned in my graphene supercapacitor video. The products under development can rapidly discharge up to 1 megawatt hour in less than 10 seconds, then recharge to full capacity in under 5 minutes. Compare that to a Tesla battery that would require around 30 minutes or so to reach a level of charge of 80%. Now here's where the reality check comes in. While these batteries have many advantages over lithium-ion batteries like greater power density, where they simply cannot compete is energy density, the amount of electricity they can hold per unit volume. Remember the water analogy? Well, if power density is the size of the hose, energy density is the size of your tank. According to the MIT researchers behind PolyJoule's technology, lithium-ion batteries have energy densities up to 5 times greater than the polymer battery under development. This means PolyJoule would need a battery 5 times as big to store the same amount of energy. So yeah, not ideal for, say, your phone or laptop, but the abundance, safety, and longevity might make it an excellent candidate for stationary grid storage. When we report on a new battery chemistry or breakthrough, the goal isn't to replace today's lithium-ion batteries, because while all this research is going on, the lithium-ion battery isn't just standing still. Today's lithium-ion batteries have less cobalt than ever. Some have none at all. Plus, solid-state batteries are ever on the horizon. This PolyJoule battery isn't a replacement, it's a supplement. Current Tesla Powerwalls, while beautiful and compact, do use that precious lithium-ion battery material for stationary applications. For every 5.5 Powerwalls Tesla makes, they could make a long-range Model Y. And while lower energy densities are a no-go for EVs, they might be just fine for home storage. Would you buy a Powerwall equivalent battery that was 5 times as big, but lasted 2 to 3 times as long, and cost quite a bit less? Yeah, that's kind of the question, isn't it? Don't forget, they have 5 times the power density, which would be great for power surges for larger appliances like air conditioners and heaters. And at grid level, they're hugely beneficial for grid balancing, power conditioning, peak shaving, and more. According to PolyJoule CEO Eli Pastor in 2021, the ideas that we work on in the lab, you'll see turned into products 3 to 4 years from now, and they will still be innovative and well ahead of the curve when they get to the market. But for all we know about PolyJoule and their battery, there's just as much that we don't. For example, efficiency. I couldn't find data on this anywhere. This is again where lithium-ion reigns supreme, and other batteries we've covered like cryogenic air or pumped hydro lags behind. Based on the fact that this data isn't highlighted, I'm guessing it's not as good as lithium-ion. Also, nearly all the plastic in the world comes from fossil fuel. So when it comes to this battery, there's 2 ways this can go. This could finally be the solution to the massive mess of plastic we've made over the past 70 years. While it was first invented in 1862 by Alexander Parkes and showcased at the London International Exhibition, it wouldn't flood our lives until the 1950s. In 1988, the Society for Plastics Industry established a system for categorizing many recyclable plastics into groups numbered 1 through 7, shown here. If the PolyJoule battery requires very specific types of plastic, then very little recycling will be possible. But if they could develop their chemistry to work with a wide range of existing plastic, this could be huge. There's so little incentive to do the right thing in our world. Recycling is largely, and sadly, a sham, because it's almost always cheaper for companies to just buy new plastic than to actually buy recycled. If we can better standardize new plastics for recyclability and companies like PolyJoule can find novel ways of using it for energy storage, this could be a game changer. I'm going to try to reach out to PolyJoule for an on-site or interview, and if I do, I'll make a follow-up video. At this point, I have a ton of questions, but color me intrigued. By the way, we talked a little bit about graphene in this video. But if you want to learn a whole lot more about this wonder material, check out this video next.
Ricky?
Oh,